Well, thank you for coming. We're going to talk about Oniro project. It's my first time here, so thank you to all the organizers and the content committee for bringing me here and allowing me the opportunity to talk to you about our project. My name is Agustin Benito Betancourt. I've been around open source for quite some time, and I'm Spanish from the Canary Islands. I live part of the time in Malaga. I'm a remote worker advocate, and most of my career it's been around operating systems and platforms. Around 20 years ago, I went to this very interesting facility that you should go and visit in Gran Canaria. It's for following satellites. It's a very old one. It was first created by NASA. And it was utilized for the Gemini project and also then for the Apollo project. And since then, now it depends on the Defense Department of Spain. You can see there a room full packed with machines that controls satellites. And for each satellite or group of satellites, you basically have one machine. And they are kind of isolated, right? Some of them even physically isolated. You have plenty of operating systems there, and each one of those machines is a node of a network that is placed in each one of the facilities like that one that is around the world to follow the satellites across the planet when they circle. And there are a couple of things that are very, very interesting, and one of them that struck me was that basically each machine is a silo, and they are connected somewhere else, but they are right there all together, and they don't talk to each other. So you have to manage them basically one by one. And a year and a half ago, I joined Eclipse Foundation. I joined Oniro. It's another platform, another group of operating systems, this time for IoT and Edge. So it's my first experience in IoT and Edge. And in this case for consumer devices, and I just bought a few weeks ago, I bought a new camera, webcam, yet another webcam for my place, for my home. And I got exactly the same sensation, the same experience, right? I have plenty of devices at my place that basically are silos, and they go and transfer data somewhere else. And in order to see what's going on, I need to install plenty of applications in my phone. Most of them don't work with my TV. I simply don't control anything, right? So that's what Oniro is all about. It's about doing once again, in this case in IoT and Edge, what we've done in open source in other industries before. And it's basically bringing interoperability, at this case at device level, at protocol level, at every different level that we can. So Oniro is nothing but creating an IoT and Edge platform that allow us to interoperate. So you get control of your deployment, not just at data level, but also at device level, at other levels, right? At any level. And basically it's about providing an experience to application developers so they don't have to worry too much, just enough about where their solution is deployed, how it is deployed, right? So it's about providing the same kind of experience that we are providing for years in open source to other solution developers in other markets, but in this case to IoT. And Oniro is an Eclipse project. And by an Eclipse project, I mean that it's part of an ecosystem, a big ecosystem that has its roots in Europe and that supports many other ecosystems, right? And saying that Oniro is an Eclipse project basically brings, among others, 3 key variables to the table. The first one is, obviously it's open source, but there are many ways of doing open source, right? At Eclipse, it's all about openness, it's all about transparency, it's all about vendor neutrality. But Oniro is not yet just one project at Eclipse, like many others. When you look at what Eclipse is doing throughout the years in IoT and Edge, and you look at the architecture of any end-to-end IoT and Edge solution, you will see that at Eclipse, we are going for absolutely everything, right? That's That's a hidden goal we have. We want open source solutions on every building block of an end-to-end solution. And Oniro fits, and that's the key message, this one here, right? Oniro is an important, relevant building block in this picture at Eclipse Foundation. So it makes sense that a project like Oniro is at Eclipse Foundation. Talking a little bit for those of you who are technical people, engineers, Oniro is Yocto based. So we use all the Yocto projects tool set to create our platform. And we do it for two reasons. First, mainly for two reasons. First, because it allows us to handle a wide range of devices, from very small constrained devices up to edge devices. Right? And that's because it's kernel agnostic, and that's very good for us. The second part is that Oniro allows us to have all the flexibility we want, but also to constrain, so we can apply opinionated configurations to our platform for very specific verticals that target very specific markets, in this case, consumer devices for IoT and edge. We are targeting a wide range of devices, and a simplified view of Oniro is basically 4 groups of layers: the kernel ones, the system services and tool chains group of layers. Then we have all the frameworks, all the toolkits and libraries that any solution or application developer might need, and then the layer with the applications with the solutions themselves. If we go deep into a little bit into this, we support Zephyr, we support Linux. We support others, although not at the level of these two. Then when it comes to boards, we are working with the most common development boards out there. We also support some of the member production boards, mostly in specific use cases and demonstrators they use internally and externally to prove that Oniro is viable and useful for them. And then we surround that, it's way beyond code. We surround that with a lot of services and technologies that are needed, not just for creating any platform, any group of operating systems, but also for making sure that Oniro provides a first-class experience to system engineers. So we have testing on hardware on a distributed environments in distributed hardware labs based on Lava, or we have almost continuous license compliance approach embedded in our production pipelines, on our deploying pipelines, just to name a couple. We also have integrated into the platform the mechanisms, the backends for updating and upgrading your software independently of the type of device we are talking about. So a lot of complementary services and tools that provide to Oniro, from a technical perspective, a very robust look. And then Eclipse Foundation supports Oniro with a whole bunch of other services that, for instance, allow and or favors that the adoption commercially of all these technologies on the platform itself. And by the way, we are looking for RISC-V companies that wants to work with us. So we also support RISC-V boards. The tool chain already does. So I mentioned that I've been going through some technical aspects and services around Oniro. Let me go a little bit further, because Oniro goes way beyond the code. So most of the people that approach, not just Oniro, but many open source in general, but especially this kind of integration and release and deployment kind of projects, they do it basically to share effort, or to share knowledge, or to share cost, depending on who you talk to in any of these 3 forms. Obviously, that's a very important motivation for coming to Oniro, right? So you share, if you are sold on this idea of differentiate or collaborate, Oniro, it's all about collaboration. You collaborate in all the aspects of your platform, of your IoT solution that is not differentiating to you. And again, it's a big motivation. So you concentrate most of your effort in what matters, what differentiates your products in your companies, right? But it's not the only motivation for coming to Oniro. Probably it's the most obvious one. Let me go through some of the other motivations for coming to that we see, or why companies are joining to Oniro, or developers are joining to Oniro, right? The first one is this gene of EU-centric that I mentioned with global reach. Those of you who are into hardware probably understand well what means to bring hardware to Europe. You have to go through certain certifications and regulations. So it's a quite common understanding. When it comes to software, it's not that common. What is creating or bringing software into Europe? Well, probably when we think about data protection, it's a little bit more clear because it's recent, all these regulations that we are having in Europe in this topic. But as the time goes by, probably we will see more and more coming into this direction, right? So our members, our developers are in Europe. Then beside this idea of sharing effort is this idea of once you start sharing effort, sharing knowledge, then innovation comes to place, right? And co-innovation is another, especially for those organizations and developers who are more deep into open source, this is a key factor. So when you join a group of talented engineers, you know that good things are going to happen. And Oniro has a great group of engineers. Then I talked before about the main variables that Eclipse Foundation brings. And those are important: the open governance, vendor neutrality, transparency, openness. Those are relevant. It's not just about the license, right? Doing open source the right way is important for sustainability of your project. I mentioned that Oniro has a very device-centric view. If you build solutions on top of Oniro, you don't need the cloud. I mean, you can have it, but you don't need it. And there are plenty of use cases out there that should not need the cloud, right? And there are not many solutions in the IoT and edge space that have that device-centric view, right? The cloud is relevant, but it's just yet an add-on. It's not a core part of Oniro at this moment. One more thing is the agreement. So for many companies in this space have to deal from very low-level stuff up to user interfaces and user interaction. It's a wide range to cover for small or medium-sized companies, right? Coming to a place where you have engineers that covers a lot of that wide range, and talking to them and sharing with them and making agreements around a lot of the configurations or a lot of APIs, protocols that you use, that makes a difference in the lifetime of your products and solutions. And that's a value that Oniro has, right? That sharing knowledge and the discussions related with the requirements and use cases that leads to the opinionated configurations that we put into place. And last but not least, we have a worldwide approach. We want to change IoT and market for good, but everywhere, right? And here I would name our special collaboration that we have with Open Harmony in China, where we are bringing some code from them into Oniro. They are our upstream. And also on the specifications front, at Eclipse Foundation, we spec the code. We are code-first organizations. We are creating specs in Oniro, and those specs are related with Open Harmony specs. The last point that I want to mention about the value that Oniro adds beyond the code and beyond the services around the code is the fact that at Eclipse Foundation, working groups and open source projects, so engineers and companies do not have a hierarchical relation. So companies do not tell engineers what to do. It's not a pay-to-play environment. So both are equal. In fact, the ecosystem, the working groups has at Oniro two main goals. The first one is to support the development, so provide to the developers what they need. And the second one is to drive commercial success. So the ecosystem, the companies do not drive the development, they drive the commercial adoption. That's an important point. And the key factors or the key elements where this relation works is they have to get together, they have to talk, and they have to make agreements to define the release roadmaps. So what part of what the engineers are doing are going to be part of the release. That happens on the code, and it also happens on the specifications of that code. Those are the two main elements that define the relation between the companies and the engineers. So the engineering environment is a meritocratic environment. We have now 8 members, and in this coming release that is about to happen in a few weeks, we'll have around between 40 and 50 contributors. Most of them affiliated to the member companies, some others are individual contributors. And in 2023, we're going to go through a couple of major changes in the project. So I would like to highlight for a couple of minutes a few of them. The first one is, so far, Oniro has been about shipping a product, an end-to-end platform for solution developers or for device makers in the consumer space mostly. That was the main target. But we have requests from companies that wants to use parts of Oniro. So taking advantage of the flexibility that Yocto provided, we are going to re-architecture a little bit our product and move away from a single product project to a portfolio project. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to take part of the platform and we're going to create a baseline for other platforms that target other markets with other use cases. We will call that profiles. So the IoT and Edge, the consumer device, related, for example, with our friends in OpenAtom in China, with OpenHarmony, those ones are going to be one profile. And then we will open the door to creating other profiles, depending on the interest that different companies have for industrial IoT or for even automotive. And we're going to keep that maximum common denominator that will be the baseline as a base operating system as the commons of a project. So everybody will have to help to develop and make even more robust those baseline. So the overall idea is to getting more users on that baseline, so expand our user base, so hopefully our contributor base horizontally, and then expand the number of companies that approach Oniro because they are interested in this approach, in this kind of value for targeting new markets for us, the markets where they are placed in. So I mentioned again a couple. So we are interested in expanding horizontally and somehow expanding vertically. Those are in a nutshell, the changes coming in this 2023. We are in year 2, approaching year 3 of development. And, well, it's an open source project at Eclipse Foundation, so everybody can join. If you want to join as individual contributor, obviously you're welcome. If you want to join together with your organization, obviously you're welcome. The first thing, as usual, is try it out, see what we've done in these 2 years, talk to us about what is going to happen the next year, and you have the opportunity to do so. Here, there are 2 booths where there are people that are contributors to the project. The first one I will mention is obviously the Eclipse Foundation one, but our friends on Huawei, they have in their booth people also working full-time at Oniro, so they can explain a lot of things about Oniro. And I put on the slides some of the channels you can reach out to us. And that's basically all I had to say. Thank you.